When most people think of classic survival horror games, Clock Tower is almost always on that list. Released on the Super Famicom back in 1995, it gained popularity in other languages through dedicated fan translations. Nearly 30 years later, the game was released outside of Japan for the first time through Clock Tower Rewind. I recently played it and I really enjoyed it, but this made me curious about the series as a whole. The Clock Tower series has a total of 4 games, with one being a spin-off, but the English releases are kind of a confusing mess. Since we didn't get Clock Tower until 2024, the 1996 sequel, Clock Tower 2, was marketed differently here in North America. It was officially released as just Clock Tower, with the spin-off game Clock Tower Ghost Head being changed to Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within. This allowed everything to sync back up with the final game, Clock Tower 3. Today, I want to talk about the immediate sequel, the actual Clock Tower 2. Not The Struggle Within. Clock Tower 2 was the last game in the series to maintain the original director, Hifumi Kono. Hopefully that means we'll be getting an experience similar in tone, but with gameplay and narrative improvements. One of the biggest issues I had with the original Clock Tower was that the plot took a very long time to develop. Once it got going, it was super interesting, but I was so bored during the first half of my playthrough that I didn't think I was gonna be able to make a video on it. Here's hoping the sequel manages to find its footing quicker. Clock Tower 2 begins with a cutscene retelling the later events of the original game. Jennifer is in the caverns beneath the mansion, frantically scrambling away from her giant purple friend, Dan Barrows. She blows him up before we cut back to present day, where a man speaks about how the murders have continued. The Scissor Man is back, claiming victims from Norway to England. This cutscene acts as a preview, showing us some of the events that'll take place throughout the game. I'll be talking about the events of this game's story in detail as I walk you through how my playthrough went, so we'll be skipping past this for the most part. Admire the glimpses of crappy 90s PlayStation CGI while you still can. The one thing that I will share from this intro is that apparently I've been pronouncing Barrows incorrectly. It's Barrows. Oops. The game's actual opening cutscene shows a 15-year-old Jennifer Simpson undergoing treatment for her trauma. It's been over a year since the Clock Tower murders, and people are struggling to believe her about the events of that night. A criminal psychology professor at a local university, Samuel Barton, is trying to extract the truth from her through hypnosis. Jennifer's new guardian, another professor named Helen Maxwell, is not happy with the hypnosis. She snaps Jennifer out of it and scolds Barton. But Helen, he really wants to know what happened. Who cares if it traumatizes the only survivor of a tragic mass murder? Helen takes Jennifer home like a good guardian, while Barton tries to guilt her into prioritizing her position as his assistant over the well-being of the child that she's legally responsible for. What a stand-up fella. We get to play as this burning trash heap of a human being for the entirety of the prologue, which makes me want to take a shower to wash off any residual mental grime that he left on me. Barton is obsessed with finding the truth behind the Clock Tower murders. He even owns a giant replica of the scissors that were used. If you examine them, he gets all dizzy in this weirdly dramatic cutscene. This game is a point-and-click through and through, even more so than the original Super Famicom entry. You walk around by clicking on either the floor or the objects around you, and you can double-click to run. This entire game can be played with just the D-pad, the X button, and the square button for panic mode, which I'll get to later. This game was actually designed to be playable with the PlayStation mouse, which explains the lack of utilizing more than a few buttons. Barton leaves his office, taking note of a few people and things around the office. There's a purple statue that was found at the scene of the murders, as well as the Scissorman's rubber mask. I didn't think Bobby was wearing a mask in the first game, but here we're told that he was wearing a cheap rubber Halloween mask. Barton can also talk to 2 employees here, Beth and Danny. Beth tells him that Helen left the building looking super pissed off, and Danny tells him that there's a reporter on the first floor who wants a word with him. Reporter Nolan Campbell and his cameraman Tim conduct a brief interview with Barton, where the professor openly expresses that he believes Jennifer's account of the tragedy to be suspicious and untrustworthy. Apparently Barton doesn't believe in the Scissorman. Well, kind of. They phrased this really poorly. It's proven fact that there was a killer who wore a mask and used a giant pair of scissors to commit the murders, but Barton doesn't believe in the more supernatural aspects, like the Scissorman being an immortal monster. But when was he ever established as that in the original game? Sure, Jennifer gave him a good beating, but the majority of the things we saw him endure during the game just implied that he was tough, not immortal. Wouldn't something more supernatural and difficult to believe be the whole cult thing and the existence of Dan Barrows? The gigantic blubbering twin brother? I guess if his body was missing but the mask and scissors remained there, that would imply that he was still alive. But how was the evidence of Dan and Mary concealed? In the last game, Jennifer straight up murdered Mary, and Dan's corpse was still there in the caverns below. Hell, even if the caverns below the estate mysteriously collapsed, there's still a lot of cult-related evidence that was scattered throughout the house, including stuff that Jennifer needed to have in her inventory to beat the game. To me, it feels like the writers needed to continue the story, but didn't know how, so they just came up with a loose idea and didn't think too far into how it would connect to the original game. All the evidence left behind? Nah, it was just a girl and some scissors. I could probably talk about all the disconnected plot points for way too long, so I'm gonna cut myself short here. Barton heads back upstairs after the interview where he learns from another employee, Harris, that the other survivor of the clock tower incidents is in his office. I'm sorry, the what? I know I literally just said I'd stop talking about the disconnected plot, but this seems pretty big. Jennifer was the only survivor of that incident. Was there supposed to be someone else now? Inside the office, we meet Kay and Edward. Kay is a worker at Jennifer's old orphanage, and Edward is the supposed second survivor. He's 10 years old and apparently lost all of his memories from the trauma he endured, so Kay calls him Edward to avoid confusion. We don't know his real name or anything about him. All we know is that he apparently survived the clock tower murders, and he dresses incredibly similar to Bobby Barrows, who we recently learned was wearing a mask during the first game. Something tells me this adorable little tyke is the Scissorman, but the interview cuts to black as the prologue ends. This isn't really a good omen for this game. I've heard mostly positive things about it, but there are so many plot holes and inconsistencies in the prologue alone that I'm pretty dang worried about the direction we're going. There are two important things that happen during the prologue that dictate what happens during the rest of the game, both of which involve that guy Harris. Firstly, talking to him in the hallway on your way to speak with the reporter will fundamentally alter your game. If you speak to him just once, you'll play through the game as Jennifer's guardian, Helen. If you speak to him twice, he'll let it slip that he, a 35-year-old man, has feelings for Jennifer, a 15-year-old girl. Not only is she a minor, she's also under the age of consent in Norway, where this game takes place. That makes it all the more creepy that speaking to Harris twice here is what allows you to play through the game as Jennifer. I'll be playing through this game 2 times, once as Helen and once as Jennifer. Since Jennifer is the protagonist of the original game, I decided to start with her. The other thing that Harris can determine involves that statue from the crime scene. Apparently Barton wants to get a professional opinion on it, meaning he either has to ask Harris to bring the statue to an old butler of the Barrows family, or bring the statue to one of the professors working at the local library. Depending on where the statue is sent, you'll be sent through an entirely different chapter of the game. For my first playthrough, I decided to let Harris bring the statue to the butler. There are 2 different segments in the game from this point onwards, intermissions and scenarios. Intermissions take place during the day where everything is safe and you can explore the town where Jennifer lives and gather information. Scenarios take place at night where things can get a lot more dangerous. This first intermission is pretty simple for the most part. There are only a few notable events. Firstly, Jennifer is aware of Edward's existence, but is not at all suspicious of him despite also being a victim and never having seen him before. Secondly, the reporter from earlier, Nolan, is standing outside of Jennifer's house attempting to intercept her. Ignoring how he somehow learned where she lives, she invites him in, where he explains that he's interested in the clock tower case and would like to talk to her about it over a meal. Jennifer asks if he's asking for an interview or a date. While Nolan is sitting over here hesitating, let's break down exactly why there is only one correct answer here. Jennifer is 15 years old. Nolan is 26 years old. Jennifer is a minor. Nolan is not. The age of consent in Norway in 1996 was 16. Any answer other than "I would only like to interview you" will lead into illegal activity. Nolan responds that he is both asking her out on a date and an interview. I gotta say, this game is a lot scarier than the first one so far. 2 maps before we even see bloodshed? It doesn't help that Jennifer also seems interested in Nolan as she tee-hees at his proposal. After their date, Jennifer begins her walk back home, but she notices that someone is following her. The university research building is just up the street, prompting Jennifer to sprint over looking for help.
What's wrong?
Help! Someone is following me!
Some kind of weirdo?
Oh my god!
What the fuck?
Upstairs now, Jennifer. Or go to the elevator, I guess. Can we not choose a floor? 3, whatever the farthest one from this is. That was awesome. I did actually kind of get caught off by the scissorman showing up out of the blue and killing that guard, and the rudimentary point-and-click controls made the situation feel a lot more out of my control. In that clip, I was spamming the stairway trying to get inside, and Jennifer just refused to walk towards it, so I had to use the elevator instead, which thankfully seemed to work. I do wish the controls listened to me, though. This is our first scenario where the gameplay returns to the format of the original game. Jennifer is trapped inside the now locked research building and needs to solve puzzles to get out, all while the scissorman is roaming the the halls and hunting her down. This section emphasized how bad the controls are. Here I clicked on the elevator as Jennifer, and she decided that she wanted to take the staircase instead, the exact opposite of the situation from the first floor. That glitch at least helped me find a box by the locked door to the roof containing a rope ladder that we can use to escape. The box is locked for now, but at least we have a more concrete goal to work off of than the first game. Back in the office where Helen works, Jennifer finds a can of mace on the desk. A can of mace? Give me that right now. Are you serious? Give me the mace. Why can't I take the mace? You can't just tell me that there's a can of mace on this desk that I could use to defend myself and then not let me take it.
She's not a bright girl. I think this has been established so far.
Well, since we can't arm ourselves with the mace, I guess the next best bet is to snag this office key and head into Professor Barton's office. We can grab his giant replica scissors and use them to duel the scissorman head to head. Unfortunately for us, not only are the scissors gone, someone's on the exam table and has been impaled with, what is that, a spear? The scissorman's kill count has increased to 2. On the main floor, Jennifer finds a conveniently Jennifer-sized box to hide in the future. For some reason, the scissorman has not shown his face since the first scene, which is weird considering how often that man materialized out of thin air during the original game. The first time that I managed to find him after gaining control during this scenario was after I made Jennifer wash some blood off in the bathroom. She activated some kind of danger sense and just said, "Scissorman is coming." Sure enough, she was right. This is thankfully the only time that she ever predicts that the scissorman is coming, with the remaining appearances in the game being a more proper scare. The chase music in this game is really good. It's tense and intimidating, although definitely not as infamous as the original track. After Scissorman leaves, Jennifer makes her way over to the security office where a guard is actually here. I mean, he's dead, but at least he's here. There's a key to the ladder on a table that Jennifer uses to make her escape through the window on the top floor. It's not stable and could break at any time, but I think limping through the town looking for help is more effective than hiding from a seemingly omnipotent serial killer with a giant pair of scissors in an enclosed space.
Looping the same gasp.
Sound effects, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Jennifer actress, can you give us a little grunt like you're climbing down a rope ladder? Alright, good. We'll see you in a month when the game's done.
The next intermission begins with Detective Stan Gotts freaking out about how the original Clock Tower case has yet to be solved. Yet another mass murder has begun. Gotts doesn't believe that the scissorman is back, but Helen absolutely does. I appreciate that level of parental support, fabricated or not. Helen is determined to help Jennifer find a way to destroy the scissorman once and for all. At the research building, Helen comes to the realization that the statue from the Clock Tower murders has gone missing. We know that it should be with that old Barrows family butler, Rick. The characters don't know this since they weren't here after the start of the prologue, so Helen decides to search the library while Jennifer decides to reach out to Nolan. Helen wants to know who Nolan is, but Jennifer literally runs away from that question. Not what a parent wants to see. Nolan has enough free time in his schedule in between robbing cradles to go check out this Rick person to see if he can find the statue and get any more information on the Barrows. At Rick's house, Nolan learns that the Barrows family used to live somewhere else over 80 years ago, Barrows Castle. Supposedly a monster was born there that terrorized the local children, although Rick believed it to be a fairy tale. As the story goes, the monster's father, the head of the 13th generation of Barrows, killed his own son to put a stop to the nightmare. This means that the castle might contain the secrets on how to kill the scissorman. Rick knows that somewhere around the house he has information on where to find the Barrows castle, but he's an older guy, you know? He gets distracted easily.
Nolan, I was given this chandelier as a farewell present when I retired.
So it used to hang in the Barrows mansion?
Yes, what wonderful times they were. Except for...
It's the scissor man just up there going, chick, 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 guess what I cut down? What?!
I think yes.
That was goofy as hell, and I can't help but laugh at it. But seriously, the scissorman is apparently here, and I have no clue where to hide. Oh my god! What is that walk? This is my first time getting to see the Scissorman for a prolonged period of time since he didn't really do a whole lot during Scenario 1, so that little shuffle he has really caught me off guard. I'm glad that's how he walks though, it means I can easily outrun him. I kept finding myself stuck in corners, so I ended up having to use Panic Mode, a returning mechanic from the previous game. You need to mash the square button when you're interacting with danger to automatically get yourself out of it, as long as you have enough health. Your health is indicated by the color of your cursor in this game instead of by a profile icon in the bottom corner, which I kinda like since the thing that you use to escape from danger will tell you your health at all times. I found this wardrobe for Nolan to hide in, which conveniently had the statue we're looking for inside of it. Unfortunately, all the doors in the house are locked and we still need to get more information on the Barrows Castle. The Scissorman is really goofy in this section of the game and I have no idea why. I literally walked in on him watching TV at one point while searching around for clues. What? Is that just him?
What is happening?
In contrast to the Scissorman basically not even appearing in the previous scenario, he will literally not leave me the hell alone here. He kills Rick. I try to hide. He pops out of the kitchen floor. I hide. I interrupt his TV time. I hide. I walk down the stairs. I hide. I haven't even properly been to the main level yet because this dude won't screw off. I'm trying to play a puzzle game, sir. You need to give the player a certain amount of breathing room. There's some powdered soap on the main level that we can grab for some reason alongside a haunted mask in the kitchen. Apparently just looking at it tells Nolan the location of Barrows Castle, which makes absolutely no sense, but it's pretty helpful. I'd like to imagine that they just wrote down the coordinates or a street name across the forehead of this mask and handed it off to Rick alongside his chandelier as a retirement gift. Unfortunately for Nolan, the mask is sentient and pissed. It levitates in the air and flings furniture at Nolan, prompting him to grab a vase or something from the table and shatter it across the mask. Well, we have the information we need, so now Nolan can try to get the hell out of here. The front door is locked, but the sliding glass door in the living room isn't. Unfortunately, Rick's dog outside is a vicious little boy, but not vicious enough to withstand my powdered soap smoke bomb. Unfortunately, I can't throw powdered soap into the eyes of the people stealing my browsing data, but I can put a stop to what they're doing thanks to this video's sponsor, Incogni. My data used to be absolutely everywhere online, and that's because of data brokers. Data brokers steal your data and make money by selling your browsing habits, email address, home address, phone number, and all kinds of other personal information. It's one of the largest causes of spam texts and emails, but you have the legal right to have these brokers erase all the data that they've collected on you. Unfortunately, finding out who has your data and manually submitting removal requests to each of them is an unreasonable task that can take years of your time. But with Incogni, you don't have to do it by yourself. During the time I've used Incogni, it's identified my data from 331 different sources, successfully removing it from 291, and 80 of those removals came within the first 48 hours. That's almost 220 hours of work over the last 8 months that I completely avoided. Incogni even gives you a detailed view of each company that had your data, so you can see what each company does and how high of a security threat they are. You can see all the in-progress reports and how long on average it takes to remove your data from each specific source. Incogni is frequently checking for your information, meaning when it detects your personal details with a new data broker, they immediately stop them from selling your information. You're not just safe from the companies that currently have your information, you're safe from the ones that will attempt to get it in the future. Incogni removes you from the data broker sales loop. With the new Unlimited and Family Unlimited plans, you can protect yourself even further using custom removals. You can point to any website where your personal information is visible, even if it's not on Incogni's radar yet, and have a privacy expert handle the removal of your data. If you've been following my channel for a while, you've probably heard me talk about how much I value online privacy. I have an associate's degree in cybersecurity and I'm graduating with my bachelor's this month, in a couple weeks. Security's kinda my whole thing. That's why Incogni is so important to me. I don't want people knowing and profiting off of my personal information, and I'm sure you don't want that either. Please protect yourself and your privacy by going to incogni.com/benagain and using code benagain to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That is an amazing discount for an absolutely invaluable service. That's incogni.com/benagain using code benagain. Stay safe out there. Control switches back over to Jennifer for the third and final intermission. I took a quick shower to wash the Fogel precursor germs off myself before proceeding with the story. Jennifer gets the statue from her knight in striped black and white armor, learning all about Barrows Castle and its location. She lets everyone know about the plan to go to England where she can investigate without being chased by the Scissorman, learning that literally everyone she speaks to wants to come with. By the end of the intermission, she's amassed a group of 10 people, from herself to Helen to Nolan and his cameraman to the university employees Edward and Detective Gotts. That plane is gonna look like a clown car. We cut directly to a camper van in the middle of the wilderness with Helen and Gotts standing outside proclaiming that everyone has gone missing except for them. They hurry over to the castle as we cut over to a cutscene that is so absolutely ridiculous that I'm just gonna play it in full for you. What?
What the fuck?
Don't be afraid, Jennifer. It's me, Harris.
This is a dream?
Harris?
Poor girl. Don't worry. I'll help you now.
Where are we? Where is everyone? What's that costume?
He told me. He told me that if I kidnap you, he will give you to me.
What is this voice acting?
Harris is the right?
Yeah.
He told me to dress up like Scissor Man and kill people. Jennifer?
No, don't come any closer.
Are we just in the thick of it already? Okay. Let's recap. The Scissorman during the entirety of this game was actually Harris, the university employee who made creepy comments about his infatuation with Jennifer at the start of the game. He was told by the real Scissorman that if he kidnapped Jennifer, he could have her all to himself. So Jennifer was kidnapped and brought into the Barrows castle against her will before the real Scissorman killed one of the two grown adult men trying to get their filthy mitts on her. That entire section from the van to the two Scissormen felt so freaking abrupt with no warning, and they really just threw us into a chase sequence right afterwards. I had to scramble through the castle with no idea of the layout, just trying to find anywhere to hide. I ended up hiding behind a rack of clothing before using it to topple the guy, which for some reason actually stopped him for once instead of just momentarily stunning him. Jennifer grabs a note written in a different language that she finds in the library next to what I consider to be the weirdest model in the entire game. Why on earth is this stack of books so gigantic? Each book is twice as wide and is the same length as Jennifer's torso. Is this a castle for giants? In a nearby backroom, Detective Gotts is very dead, having been shoved into a medieval torture device. I know that some of the actions you take throughout the game determine whether the people who come to England make it out alive or not, but I cannot for the life of me figure out what they are. There's a secret stairwell in the ceiling that leads to a tunnel connected to a fireplace. This gives us access to the rest of the castle where we'll be pursued by the Scissorman while trying to figure out how to kill him once and for all. Because of its size and failure to differentiate doors, this is my least favorite setting of the game. It's really easy to get lost here, and I wasn't able to find too many hiding spots. The time that you spend wandering around trying to get your bearings is almost always interrupted by a Scissorman chase, which leads to trying to find a familiar landmark that you can use to find one of the very few hiding spots. Hiding was the most frustrating part of this section. Clicking something that seems like a good hiding place, like a bed, would often result in Jennifer holding up the sheet and hiding behind it before tossing it onto the Scissorman and running past. This doesn't stop the chase, it just prolongs it, making it take even more time. I also found that hiding spots don't always work in this final area. It seems to be random chance from what I can tell, but sometimes the Scissorman will just walk up to where Jennifer is hiding with no way to know that she's there before stabbing the scissors into her through the wall of the hiding spot. The puzzles here are fine. A lot of it is searching random rooms for keys and finding dead bodies. One that I thought was pretty cool was taking the foreign note that Jennifer found in the library and bringing it to Professor Barton to translate. He's just kind of here in an indoor garden area, completely uninjured and just hanging out. The note ends up being some kind of spell in Latin that will be super important later on. Barrows Castle seemed to contain a lot of different clues that never amounted to anything, which I later learned was because they're intended for the other route. But if they're not useful to Jennifer and only work as a source of confusion, why are they here in the first place? When I did my playthrough as Helen, the layout of the castle partially changed, meaning the development team had a different map for each of the characters. So why didn't they remove something that could cause so many issues? A major example for me had to do with this room containing 3 ladders. There's a note carved into the table stating that you need to take the dry path. In Helen's route, you need to drop objects down each well to find the one without water at the bottom. In Jennifer's, though, this means literally nothing. You take a panel from the church and have memorized the location of the symbols on it, which in itself is terribly designed. You take the panel with you, but you can never look at it again, even when it's in your inventory, meaning I just had to hope I remembered the order I saw the symbols in an hour ago when I picked up the item. Most Most of the time I like talking about every puzzle I encounter since I find them to be super interesting, but Clock Tower 2 just didn't do it for me. The majority of the puzzles were just flat out forgettable, while the ones I do remember, I remember because they had terrible design flaws that were frustrating to work around. As Jennifer explores the castle, she finds a coffin containing the corpse of the original Scissorman. I think she recognizes him because of his face, but if the newer Scissorman was wearing a cheap rubber Halloween mask, I'm not sure how it would look the same. Maybe it was designed after the original monster since it's a legendary piece of folklore in the area, or something? The mummified Scissorman is clutching a key to a nearby box. I tried to open it up, but the new Scissorman decided now would be a great time to attack. Jennifer is chased out onto a balcony where she jumps through a window and finds Nolan sitting injured in a room full of several hundred bones. Well, several 101 now that Jennifer's here, you criminal scum. Jennifer tells Nolan that she's going to kill the Scissorman, but is cut off by 4 dancing ghost children who just kind of bounce around and sing for a bit before fading out. I don't really know their purpose, but apparently they keep appearing while Nolan is trying to rest. Thankfully, they're incorporeal, so he can't get his hands on them. Jennifer leaves the room, gets chased by Scissorman again immediately, then escapes and manages to open the box in the coffin room. Inside is Helen, somehow. Wasn't she one of the 20% of the group that wasn't kidnapped? Who put her in this box? She certainly doesn't tell us. She does agree to help to search for a way to destroy Scissorman though, which is nice. They split up, with Jennifer finding a box on top of the bookshelves in the library. Inside is an old Barrows family tree with one of the members of the 13th generation, Quentin Barrows, being marked with red and labeled a traitor. We know from Rick that this is the man who fathered the original Scissorman. One of the rooms in the castle has the portraits of all of the Barrows family heads, so Jennifer yanks Quentin Barrows off the wall and reads a message on the back of his frame. It reads, "Danger is near. I've hidden the map in the library. I hope people in a later time may discover the door and expel the devil children from this world." It's signed Quentin Barrows. Well, he did kill the original Scissorman, and now we know he used a door to do it. All we need is the map leading there. Jennifer heads to the study connected to the library, finding the map in question attached to the inside of a fireplace. It indicates a passage beneath the fountain in the indoor garden. But first, we have to deal with a certain puzzle. One of the stupidest puzzles in this entire game involves a secret passageway behind a bookshelf. There's a section of books with copper covers with a single volume missing. Jennifer picked up a book that matches this description earlier on, so obviously we put the book in the empty slot, right? No matter how many times I tried to insert the book into the slot, Jennifer refused to do so. You know how you solve the puzzle? You look at this tiny little corner of the screen where a few pixels of scratches are visible. Now Jennifer realizes that the bookshelf can move, and she has the motivation to listen to you when you tell her to put the book on the shelf. The worst part, the second the shelf opens, the game transitions to a substantially better camera angle where you can super easily see the scratches. If they just used this camera angle the entire time, this wouldn't even be a problem. Jennifer takes the passageway down, finding a room containing a dagger similar to the one used to kill the zombie in the first game. With this, we can finally put an end to things. Jennifer moves to the indoor garden where she uses a hidden valve to drain the fountain and gain access to the passageway marked on the map. As she descends the ladder with her feet not lining up with the rungs, we reach a final underground tunnel. A door sits at the end with voices echoing out from the other side. Edward and his guardian from the orphanage, Kay.
Edward, please. I know you're a good boy. Let's stop this and go back to the Granite Orphanage. Edward? Ah!
Oh my gosh, the guy that dresses like the Scissorman is the Scissorman? Jennifer opens the door, finding the Scissorman, Edward, standing over the corpse of Kay. Honestly, I'm completely blown away by this plot development. I can't believe that the Scissorman this entire time was that poor innocent little boy Edward. To think that a mysterious new character who claimed to be a survivor of the same incidents as Jennifer while never being in the original game, while also dressing exactly the same as the Scissorman, could actually be the Scissorman? Of course it was Edward! I was hoping they weren't gonna go with the most obvious route, but clearly that hope was misplaced. Here, have a cutscene with terrible voice acting, completely misaligned subtitles, and the biggest reveal of the entire game.
So, it was you, Edward.
I guess the secret is finally out, Jennifer. But my name isn't Edward, it's Dan.
You don't mean... No!
So, you remember me now.
Jennifer!
No!
Come here, you scissor-fingered little runt.
So this is Dan Barrows, the big purple brother from the original game. We did see a shadowy figure dig itself out of what I thought was Dan's corpse, so I guess that's who this other survivor was. Apparently this scene of Dan standing up after Jennifer leaves was added in later editions of the game, I assume to try and string together some of the continuity. As you saw, Nolan barged in to fight off Dan while Jennifer runs to the other side of the bridge. He's probably worried that another miner will more easily be able to steal Jennifer's heart. Jennifer places the statue from the original clock tower case on this funky little pedestal. She reads out the incantation that Professor Barton translated for her, opening the door and releasing some kind of powerful vortex that attempts to suck both her and Dan inside. Jennifer latches onto the railing of the bridge with Dan holding onto her ankle. This is not a cutscene and you can absolutely survive it, but I only realized my cursor was on the screen about half a second before both Jennifer and Dan were sucked into the abyss. Wait, if this is how the original Scissorman was killed, how was his body in a coffin? Somehow, this ending where she literally dies is ending B, meaning it was the second best ending in the game. I reloaded my save and tried that one more time, this time knowing that I was in control and stabbing Dan in the face with the dagger. The door closes and Nolan drags Jennifer over the railing. The cavern they were in collapsed around them, leaving a small pocket to sit in. This leads into ending A, the best ending in the game.
I wonder how many days have passed since we were locked in here.
Days? I think it's been only a night.
Are we going to die like this?
Please don't.
Don't worry. I'm sure Helen will rescue us.
You know,
Oh God, please
you're
don't.
tough.
Don't.
No,
Don't.
you're just...
Don't do it. Okay, yeah, they're gonna go for it. That is a 15-year-old girl and a 26-year-old man.
Helen?
Clock Tower, what are you doing?
Jennifer, Nolan,
Helen?
Hi Helen, I'm being groomed! That's right, the two best endings of this game are Jennifer dying and Jennifer getting groomed.
Yay.
Dan returning to be the Scissorman after the death of his brother is really cool, but I don't like how they handled it. It really feels like the developers didn't even remember what happened in the original game and didn't bother to check. Even Dan's character design is just the same outfit as Bobby, but with a closed jacket and booty shorts, presumably because this game has so many characters with an illegal taste for a younger dating pool. The Clock Tower wiki claims that the director has stated in an interview that Kay is also one of these people, but I can't find the interview myself, so I can't confirm the statement's authenticity. Jennifer's portion of this game had a lot of rough patches, but that's not all that the game has to offer. I'm holding out hope that Helen's version of things is more well thought out. To play as Helen, you just don't speak to Harris multiple times. He never reveals his feelings for Jennifer, and Helen takes charge as the protagonist. This system leads me to believe that most people would have played through as Helen, since it's more difficult to figure out how to play as Jennifer. The game even has a hint system containing information on how to play as Jennifer, so the developers definitely expected the player to be Helen first. The only other difference in the prologue was how I handled the statue. I had it sent to the library instead of having Harris bring it to Rick, just to see what the alternate scenario would look like. Helen's first intermission is super straightforward. She's at work, her hard drive crashes, so she decides to take a nap. She wakes up to a knock at the break room door, and who the hell are you? Oh! Helen's scenario 1 plays out extremely similarly to Jennifer's university experience with a slightly different escape route. Instead of going through the window with the rope ladder, Helen has to unlock the back door to the storage room and get her car. That's the only mechanical difference. When it comes to the spooks, Helen's route is infinitely better. The Scissorman actually pursued me here, and he had tons of scripted scares like the original game and like Nolan's scenario 2. They are super cheesy and goofy, which I loved. This game is definitely not nearly as scary as the original game, but the humor it brought was really enjoyable to me. Two of my favorite silly scares they threw in take place in different offices across the building. Helen can find a computer room where the Scissorman is lying in wait for her. As he turns around and starts making his way towards her, the monitors lined up on the desks in the background turn on, reading kill, kill, kill. It's so corny. Another great one takes place when Helen gets a fax from the Scissorman. He literally faxes her a piece of paper that says, "Get ready, I'm coming to get ya." Who came up with this? Someone give them an award, because this is infinitely more entertaining than Jennifer's route so far. More action isn't the only thing that Helen's route has over Jennifer's route. From what I can tell, she has more hiding spots and generally more information about the spooky things happening in the office. She can recognize the corpse in the office as one of her co-workers, Rose, and she can hide in the bathroom stalls. The bathroom stall hiding mechanic is the scariest hiding mechanic in the entire game. I have no idea why they didn't use this more often. When you use use the bathroom stall, the camera angle changes so you can't see if the scissorman is outside or not. You have to use audio cues and some patience to determine if it's safe to come out, which is a mechanic that I don't see nearly enough in horror games. By not knowing what's on the other side, you instantly utilize the fear of the unknown. At every other point in the game, you can clearly see the scissorman entering the room and then leaving quickly thereafter, which is a lot less scary. I can understand not being able to choose a camera angle for something like the hidden floor spot in Rick's house and the boxes scattered through each of the maps, but I think it could have been done easily for something like a wardrobe, which is another common hiding space. Helen uses some pliers and a key to get herself out of the research building and to her car, where she can reunite with Jennifer and notify the police of what happened. The second intermission starts off exactly the same, with Detective Gotts freaking out about the murders and Jennifer and Helen resolving to try and find the statue's whereabouts. Helen heads over to the library, where she's directed to Mr. Sullivan's office. On the way over, she runs into Dan. Surely this isn't a sign of things to come, right? Mr. Sullivan gives Helen a key to the reading room where she can do some research. He'll hold on to the statue until she's done. Helen takes the key and does some reading in the hopes of finding some information on the scissorman. She randomly looks around and decides to read some books on England. We may know that the Barrows Castle is there, but Helen doesn't, so I don't really know why she was so excited when she found the books about England. After some research, the library closes and Helen needs to leave. She still needs that statue, so she heads over to Mr. Sullivan's office, but stops as the clock tower in this building begins to chime incessantly. Sullivan claims that the bells must be broken since they won't stop sounding off over and over again, so the two decide to investigate.
The clock hasn't been working for ages. I wonder if someone has been messing with it. Oh, no.
Mr. Sullivan?
Oh, no. My hand is stuck.
As if Sullivan getting decapitated by the hand of a clock wasn't terrifying enough, it's revealed that the scissorman was the one who did it, and he's locked all the doors to the library. As seems to be a trend with Scenario 2, Scissorman appears a little too frequently at the start. There's a lot of scripted scares that rocket off back to back to back, from toppling bookshelves to magically controlling links of chain with supernatural powers to latch onto Helen's leg. I think we can safely assume that this scissorman is Dan, not Harris, since the kid was so close in proximity to the situation. Helen sneaks back to Sullivan's office, snatching the key to the storage room where the statue is contained before trying to find a way out. She ends up stumbling upon Dan hiding under a desk, leading him back to the main area of the library where he can more safely hide. Helen pries the vent off a wall and tells Dan to head through and escape. She's still stuck inside, but not for long. People must have been a bit concerned to find the decapitated head of Mr. Sullivan on the front lawn of the library, so they called the police. Detective Gotts breaks down the door and rescues Helen. During the final intermission, it's revealed that Helen's book on England contained all the information on the Barrows Castle that she could ever need, including the rumors about a monster being born there. As weirdly convenient as this is, it still makes way more sense than Nolan learning about this by looking at an unmarked mask. Helen gathers her merry crew once again, and 10 people make their way to England in the hopes of learning how to kill the scissorman. Helen and Gotts still remain unkidnapped during this segment, but this time we get to see them enter the building. Gotts isn't in a horrible torture machine, and Helen isn't thrown in a box. The majority of the layout of the building is completely untouched, with the only real difference being this giant locked door on the right side of the lobby leading to the church where Jennifer started out. You can find different characters in different locations, and they all play different roles from the alternate route. Harris is still alive here, meaning the real scissorman didn't kill him after using him to lure Jennifer to the castle. The original scissorman's corpse is not in the coffin this time, instead being replaced by Nolan. This makes a lot more sense since the original scissorman was supposed to be destroyed using the giant magical door, which wouldn't have left a mummified body as far as we're told. The library with the scratch marks on the floor actually maintains the correct camera angle right from the start during Helen's route, further convincing me that they expected people to play as Helen the first time through and didn't think about the people who would exhaust every dialogue option in the prologue. I already mentioned how the room with the 3 ladders was different, and this time it leads to the room that Jennifer hopped through the window of to find Nolan. Detective Gotts is here and he gives Helen a freaking gun. She uses this to shoot the lock off the door in the lobby, finding Jennifer strapped to a cross. Scissorman's gonna get her, oh no, so Helen shoots the scissorman in this ridiculously dramatic slow motion scene. With the scissorman cornered, Helen learns that apparently it's Professor Barton, not Harris?
Professor Barton. Why? How could you?
Helen, I told you when you first joined my seminar. There's always a danger of turning toward evil. When you're researching criminal behavior. always remember that danger.
What are you saying?
It's ironic, isn't it? That I was drawn in by his evil soul. Helen, do you believe that you really have the strength to keep it from happening to you? Can you really deny that you are involved? In this case, because you wanted to be involved? Maybe you too are attracted by the vast darkness.
I'm not like you.
I did not edit that cutscene. That's exactly as it appears in the game. Vocal pauses, inaccurate subtitles, and absolutely ridiculous delivery included. This game has had a lot of very questionable voice acting, but I think Barton takes the cake. It legitimately sounds like the actor was reading the lines a few words at a time off of note cards, and he kept having to wait for someone to hand him the next one. Apparently Barton was drawn in by the evil of the scissorman, and that made him become an imitator. That explains the weird scene during the prologue where Barton gets lightheaded when looking at the replica scissors, but it's not as good of an explanation as what we had for Harris. Harris being in love with Jennifer and doing anything to be with her makes more sense to me than whatever the hell Barton was rambling about. The rest of the conclusion plays out about the same, with Helen finding the foreign note and the map to the secret passage in the garden. She can translate the former without help and can use the latter to find a ladder. This time around, you don't get to hear Dan and Kay fighting. Helen just barges right in the room.
That voice.
I didn't think you'd get this far, Helen.
Edward? That is Edward's voice? You're the murderer?
Let's play, Helen.
That's really all the explanation we get. Helen opens the door and gets stuck on the railing just like Jennifer did, with Gotts shooting the boy off her leg and ending this tragedy once and for all.
No reason to get upset, is there, Teach? I don't think we can make it.
I am certain Jennifer is still alive.
Hey, someone's there!
Jennifer? Helen? Jennifer, you're alive! Helen!
That's right, we get a truly happy ending. Everyone lives, and Jennifer doesn't get groomed. Round of applause, everyone. In my eyes, Clock Tower 2 does not need to exist. The story fundamentally contradicts almost everything that happened during the first game and refuses to explain itself. The gameplay itself is pretty fun most of the time, save some of the more ridiculous later puzzles in Jennifer's End, so I can't say that it's not worth a play if you're a fan of the series. The game isn't nearly as scary, with the majority of the spooks being more goofy than anything. The visuals didn't age nearly as well as the original, and the voice acting made it feel even older. Playing as Helen and Jennifer provided two completely different experiences, which adds some replay value, but they also both had some pretty serious flaws. Helen's gameplay was far more interesting and polished, with Jennifer's alternative having several poorly designed puzzles and some really questionable romantic theming. I think I've run out of monetizable ways to make fun of it at this point. It's just illegal and gross, and I really wish it wasn't included in the quote-unquote best ending of the game. Normally this would mean that I recommend that you just play through the entire game as Helen, but unless you play as Jennifer, you don't get the entire story. Edward is never revealed to be Dan Barrows, he just attacks Helen with very little explanation. explanation because she wouldn't know anything about Dan in the first place. It feels like this game was designed with the idea that you would play through the game as Helen, have a fun time, and switch over to Jennifer to unravel the truth about the story. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why they didn't just force you to start as Helen and unlock Jennifer after the credits roll. Clock Tower 2 is a game that did not age well, but its age doesn't excuse the cesspool of contradictions that make up the story. If you liked the original Clock Tower and really want to try this one out, start as Helen and then switch to Jennifer. But if you're just a cursory fan, I would stay away. Unless we get the Resident Evil Silent Hill treatment and they fundamentally rework these games into polished modern remakes, it's really not worth your time. I hope to see you all again. Have a great rest of your day.